How many of you have ever wanted to create a beautiful piece of artwork that you can be proud of, but have never considered yourself artistically gifted? You thought, I can't draw, I can't paint, so I'm not even going to bother trying. Well, this one's for you. I'm going to teach you how to create a simple and easy piece of art that you can be proud of. And so we're going to start with the materials you'll need to do this. Spray paint, first off. You can use any color you want depending on what you're painting. I like to have colors that have a lot of contrast. You'll see why later. Canvas, any shape or size. It doesn't really matter the material. You can get these at Hobby Lobby or Walmart. Your stencil, I traced this shape onto a piece of poster board and then cut it out. Any shape would work. Simple shapes work better for this type of art, like trees or a bird, a mountain, like any type of simple shape would work best. And importantly, make sure you have a surface that you feel comfortable getting paint on and clothes that you're okay getting paint on. And I like to wear gloves, and normally I'd be wearing a mask just to prevent me inhaling paint, but I won't for the sake of this speech. So this in frame? So I'm going to begin the painting with the foreground. So the foreground there are two pieces of every painting, a background and a foreground. The background is obviously in the back of the painting, and the foreground is in the front of the painting. So I'm going to start with the foreground. The foreground of this painting is going to be my tree, and I want the tree to be black with a little bit of white accents in it. So I'm going to shake up this can and just start on that. The point of this is to make the color you want your tree to be bigger than the stencil itself. So I'm just going to put a little bit of black on here. With spray paint, you just need light, easy coats until you have it the color and the thickness you want. So as you can see, this layer of paint I'm putting down, it's not very thick, it's very light, and a lot of light coats eventually make it the color you want. After I finish this, I'm going to not lay the stencil on the canvas, but just measure the size of this blob of paint I've just put down. I need to go a little bit higher, but that's all right. Got plenty of paint to work with. So now, as you can see, the stencil is smaller than this blob of paint we just put down. And an optional material I didn't mention earlier is a heat gun. If you're doing this at your home by yourself, I would just wait for it to dry. That's the better option. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna just use this heat gun to dry off the paint really fast. Doing this can damage the paint if you're not careful, but I think it'll be okay for this point. As your paint dries, you may see lighter spots start to come up. That's just where the paint didn't cover. But I don't have a ton, so let's go on to the next step. I said I wanted to be black with a little bit of white accents. So again, going back to the gloves, what I'm gonna do to create a starry effect, you should say, I'm gonna put a little bit of spray paint on my fingers, like this, and I'm going to flick it onto the paint. Just like that. Is the camera picking that up? So it looks like you have stars on your painting. Just a little splatter effect. Just keep going as many times as you want till it looks good enough for you. It's really all preference at this point. This is a piece of artwork that you're supposed to be proud of, not everybody else. So again, after that, I'm gonna use the heat gun, dry that off real quick. And at this point in the process, I know what you're thinking, like, man, this looks like a wreck. This kid doesn't know what he's talking about, but just bear with me. It's gonna be great. So once your paint is dry, it doesn't come off to the touch for the most part. Again, probably not the driest, but it'll be all right. You're going to put your stencil right in the middle like this. Line it up where you want and just place it there. So a little bit of paint may come off on the back, but that's all right. So now we're going to move to our background. So what I've chosen is to make it sort of look like a sunset. So I have these 5 colors right here, and I'm gonna start with the yellow. I'm gonna put the yellow and the orange at the top to make it look like a light source for our painting, which I think usually works well. And I'll blend it down to the darker colors, like the red and the navy and the purple. So this is really all up to you. I'm gonna go straight across just because it's the simplest. Again, light coats, don't have to do it all at once. Just several light coats will do the job. I'm gonna start with yellow. I will fade it into our fluorescent orange, one of our favorite colors. And eventually, you'll see, I'm gonna get down to the stencil. And the trick here is to not spray it sideways, just to spray it straight up. That way you don't get any paint underneath your stencil. You'll see why in a moment. So I have that layer of orange down. There's still a little bit of black and white coming out from it, but I'll go back and cover that later. Move to red now. Again, these colors are completely optional. It's your preference, whatever you want to do for your painting. Again, be very intentional to spray it straight up and down, not to the side, so no paint gets underneath your stencil. I'm gonna move now to navy. I think red is a good transition from warm to cool colors. Again, make sure that's white. Whatever, we can just keep going, it's all right. I'll just go straight to purple. Red to purple, that'll look all right. So, sunset idea is kind of out the window, but that's all right. It'll still look cool. Maybe a tree floating through space. Again, just light, steady coats. Be very intentional to go straight across, straight up and down, not sideways. I'm gonna go and touch it up. As you can see, there's some black and the white flicks kind of showing through the paint a little bit. So 2-3 light coats should do the trick. Gonna go back to my yellow at the top. And now, for the final portion, is to take your stencil off, and if you've done this correctly, you should have a tree or whatever shape you chose in the middle of your sunset. Now, this is not the cleanest example because I just done it in 5 minutes, but if you really take your time, let the paint dry like it's supposed to, you will have a wonderful piece of artwork that you can show off to your friends and family. So again, there's 3 simple steps. First step is just gathering all your materials: gloves, paint, canvas, your stencil, heat gun, optional, and a surface to paint on, clothes to paint in. Second step is your foreground. Lay down that base layer, put your stencil down, and the third and final step is your background. Fade the colors, use whatever colors you want, it's all up to you. And finally, for the reveal, just take that stencil off and let your paint dry, and you'll have a piece of artwork you can be proud of.